Welcome to the High Context Podcast.
Conversations about living a full spectrum life.
My name is Ace.
And I'm Darian.
And we are sitting down with folks who inspire us daily as we dive deep into a wide range of topics, from art, music, history, and science,
to culture, consciousness, and creativity.
All with a focus on the collective while tapping into the individual and our relationships and connections to each other.
We like to think global while we act local.
Get in touch by sending us an email, highcontextpodcast@gmail.com.
Or follow us on Instagram, where you can find some archived live videos of our recording sessions at High Context Podcast.
We hope you enjoy these reflections as much as we enjoyed sitting down for these dangerous yet important conversations.
We look forward to connecting with you soon.
All power to all the people.
Where did the idea of High Context come from?
When I was graduating college, I knew I wanted to do a podcast at the time. I thought it was going to be something I did with my friends, and we highlighted like media that we liked and stuff like that. A concept to stay in touch with friends that were far away and whatnot.
Yeah.
And throughout college, because I was going to school in Tallahassee, but, had family at home in Virginia, I would be, eventually driving back and forth, a couple times a year, of course.
Yeah.
And through those, long road trips, I was listening to a lot of long-form podcasts, including Pete Holmes' You Made It Weird. So
nice.
his podcast has always been something that has brought a lot of great introspection and connection of ideas and kind of yes-anding some of the spiritual and philosophical stuff that I had already learned. And through that, I then started working here in town in St. Louis in the cannabis industry and learning a lot about how cannabis and pretty much anything we put into our bodies, we as a culture or as an industry may distill something. When I think about it, with food, we'll take something as full spectrum as all the fruits and vegetables and distill it down into multivitamins or for example a juice cleanse is you're distilling it down just to juice, you're taking all the fiber out of it. And so when I think full spectrum, I think of a well-rounded diet, you're eating all different types of foods, you're not just going to fast food or whatever.
Right.
And then the same sort of concept applies with cannabis, where it's you could get a distillate cartridge because that's what's convenient, or you could go with, the cannabis flower and getting something that, was bred to have all the different cannabinoids and not just the highest amount of THC. And then using every part of that bud, not trying to touch it so much so that all of the trichomes go into what you're enjoying. Then another process of intentionally knocking off all the trichomes and distilling that down into a full spectrum rosin or something instead of distilling it further into something that's more of a shatter or wax. That a full spectrum cannabis experience doesn't just include THC, but it includes CBD and depending on what level of plant material you want to ingest.
Man, you're an expert. You're
I was a bud tender for 2 years. Providing education about the products
I feel educated.
Was
even
huge.
Just in that short conversation. Thank you.
I think having a connection to what we're imbibing in creates a much better experience. I was at a music festival where Alex and Allison Gray spoke at, and Alex talked about how using psychedelics or even psychoactive stuff like cannabis as holy sacrament allows us to establish that set and setting kind of no matter where we are, kind of providing an intention for our experience, and ode or a toast is very similar to that same concept.
I like the way you said distilling it down into a multivitamin or a super vitamin. I like the idea of high context as a multivitamin for life.
Yeah, I could see that. I like that. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was talking with Sheed with the Weed, who's also got his own media here in town with the cannabis culture. And it was talking to him where I was kind of explaining this concept that I learned in multinational business about high context versus low context. And I was talking with Sheet about how cannabis is a high context culture, much like China or like Asian countries, southern, eastern countries like India, like Spain, like Italy, these cultures where like your relationship with the other person influences the agreement that you have together. In China, it boils down all the way down to colors and numbers chosen, but really when you're going about multinational business with people from those cultures, expect to get to know them, and that informs how the business negotiations happen.
Versus just the business transaction.
Yeah, exactly. And so the cannabis culture, like we were talking about last time, is the same in that how we all treat each other, and the plants themselves got to feel happy being grown, or you're not going to have as great a product.
The water.
Yeah, the water, the ethos of those working with the plants matters all the way down to how you're receiving the plant, like how you actually end up. Whether it's at a dispensary, whether it's through your guy, yesterday I was enjoying, a joint with someone, and I was like, oh, this, like, to me, my response was like, does this have tobacco in it? It kind of tastes like it has tobacco in it.
Like a spliff.
And they were like, no, it's not. And then they were like, but it is homegrown. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, being able to kind of, like, taste the difference
like
between...
being a sommelier of weed. You can like cannabis. You can like taste the soil and the climate.
Environment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly. Or just like knowing that it didn't have to go into like, not that the container it went into wasn't sterile, but it didn't have to go through multiple sterile processes. That, I found that to be really interesting, and like definitely a part of like the context of cannabis. Like homegrown stuff just hits different. Like it's craft. It's crafted. And I really expected and hoped that the Missouri cannabis like industry would... This town like loves craft beer. Like how is craft cannabis not... Like some companies are doing it,
I think it will be. It's just new. It's still new.
Yeah, it's just also the industry was not medical for very long.
Yeah.
Not medical for long enough in my book.
Yeah, to get the kind of systems and operations and
just
things in place.
just to kind of have a bar for the type of quality that's expected.
Yeah.
And then being able to scale these businesses out in not so much of a jump.
Yeah.
That really, I think, was
jolting.
Yeah, because, I mean, the dispensaries went from seeing medical one day to the next day.
Like, every day they got multiple
Well, it was like a 3 to 4 to 5 times increase of traffic.
Yeah.
And so those producing the cannabis are seeing that same amount of increase in demand. And it really...
Can the system handle it?
I mean, it eventually has leveled up. I mean, I think... an eighth for $40 is still hefty.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, it didn't bring the price down. It was basically the same.
Well, the prices, I think, really fluctuated up. I mean, they were up when the medical industry started because there wasn't enough open dispensaries and stuff like that. And then it's just we went, then the next iteration up is like 3 to 4 to 5 times of a jump. And then it was just so fast.
Yeah.
Like... Can't go back and change anything about it, but for me, like, it's been interesting to notice when the show me state acts like the show me state and when they don't. And like...
yeah. Just pick and choose,
Yeah. It's like, oh, you want to ask me where I went to high school, but you don't want me to show you who I am.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you, like, it's like...
But I think that's low context versus high context. They want to put you in a box, low context, by asking you that question. They're not really worried about the high context because they think they know you because of the low context. And then they don't even get outside of that realm. It's sad. But that's not just St. Louis, but I definitely notice it more here.
So we're talking about like cannabis being a high context culture, and the cannabis industry is existing in a low context structure within Missouri, within St. Louis, within this state and this country because the business world in Missouri, that culture is very much a low context culture. It's very interesting to me that like the industries that we want to help elevate the state are kind of within this low context system itself. So I was talking with Shoot at the Weed about the differences in high context culture and low context culture, and then that's when I was like, oh, that's the name of my podcast, and now I finally have like a name to then guide me to what the podcast is going to be about.
Awesome.
So we've been kind of showing instead of telling our listeners what it's going to be like, but we want to be able to share these really meaningful conversations with more than just us.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff we've said to each other has just been jaw dropping.
Yeah, man. If y'all could hear some of the conversations we've had that weren't recorded, mind blowing.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit into your origin story. You talked about playing instruments, and I wanted to see if like there was a particular instrument or period of time that you were doing music that like sticks out more to you, and like why?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, for me, the things that stick out, like the highlights have, hosting my own radio show was really massive for me because for myself, I have always seen myself as a patron of the arts. I don't really feel so much of the artist. I know I have my artistic tendencies and my leniences and stuff like that, or some of the things where I'll approach something that's not so artistic in an artistic way. But, I've always wanted to support the creation of art and the creative process. And that's it's been so cool to do that as a radio DJ, as a DJ at the Royale, as someone that, that shares in that. But prior to that, I mean, doing music in high school was really cool because the band director really was very regimented. He was very into, being the best, and it was a really rigorous
style, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, big time. It was very much like the military, couldn't miss practice sort of thing. And so there was these really cool things we got to do with that mentality, which was perform music for the Virginia Music Educators Association. That was a really cool experience. My junior year of high school, when we marched one of the songs we did for that performance, which was Tempered Steel, and that was the school's 10-year anniversary. So Colonial Forge is the name of the high school I went to.
Okay.
Was built on George Washington's father's steel forge.
Whoa.
So that's where the name came from. And so the 10th year of the music program, the 10th year of the school, Andrew Loft had been there for 10 years. The theme was forged steel.
Okay.
So it was a Man of Steel themed show. So there was Tempered Steel to open up, and then there was music by Superman in there.
Nice, yeah.
And our drum feature was Jimmy Olsen's Blues by the Spin Doctors, which is like still one of my favorite songs. Like, the music, the marching band program, while it was rigorous, was just like really cool because it was like this culture of work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
The band director would take us down to Florida and like perform at the amusement parks in Florida.
Yeah.
So
you charter a bus or something, like how to
Yeah. It was a whole thing. I mean,
band trip.
Yeah. The Tempered Steel experience, like using alternative percussion. Like I think we used we joked it was a hubcap. Like just doing percussion and doing and having exciting experiences within music that's like you already had a referential point for, I think was really, really fun. Learning about polyrhythms within percussion ensemble and like mixed meters, like when we would play measures that were like alternating 16 8 time and 17 8 time and like how that all came together was really cool. My freshman year, I think I was telling you about From the Shadows program. We that was my freshman year, my first experience with marching band, and we were just playing the coolest music, Carmina Burana, and then This Is Halloween and Sally's Song from Nightmare Before Christmas.
That'll make you want to come back.
Oh yeah, and then ended the the back half of the program that freshman year was the drum feature of Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is just like a classic. And then ending, the grand finale was Night on Bald Mountain. I played timpani, and right behind me was the color guard woman who was spinning her baton on fire.
I bet that was a fun experience.
It was epic. Yeah. Like, it was so epic.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And that year when we went down to Florida, we went to Disney, and we were in the Electro Magic Parade, which I had seen when I was little. Like, my parents had taken us when we were little, and like, so having that full circle moment of then being in it, and we played some of the Nightmare Before Christmas music, but we were also playing It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, which is I don't know if you know that song, but it's kind of like a B-side for the amusements, but it's one of the original rides. The Carousel of Time.
Oh, I've heard of that. Right?
Yeah, so it's the song from A Carousel of Time.
Okay.
And so playing that on like a marching glockenspiel about to go into like the Disney castle, I was like
magical,
like welling up while performing, and that was huge. Like that was like definitely one of those top tier experiences, like seeing backstage Disney and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. Like, when you're performing there, you get to see the insides and kind of inner workings of the park.
Yeah, it was very I'm surprised I remember so much from it, because sometimes those experiences can be so overwhelming. Core memory. That I like, for example, like my senior year when I graduated and walked across the stage and stuff, I don't remember doing it. Like, I just blacked it out.
Like, maybe I remember taking my picture with my thing. That's it.
Yeah, I remember starting to walk up to it, and then I remember like being a couple steps after receiving everything, and it's like my parents like, you looked really happy. I'm like, I don't remember any of it.
Sure, I hope you took pictures. I feel that.
I'm grateful that wasn't one of those moments.
Right. It's good to keep that memory. I mean, that's a phenomenal experience to be at Disney, where you've seen this particular parade before as a child. Now you're performing, and it's like also related to Disney, and like it's multiple layers of very, very cool things.
Yeah, super grateful for that. Yeah. It's interesting. I do look back, and it's like I could have done band and marching band and percussion ensemble or drama. Yeah. Basically. And like I definitely had more support from my family to be doing the music more so than the drama. Like, it was my dad especially would say like, oh, you sure you want to do drama? Well, you're going to have to get used to asking, do you want fries with that? Like, being like, the rate of success is much lower, like, sort of thing. So it's just is interesting.
Becoming a success, well, I should say a well-paid actor is pretty equivalent to making it to the league, like at a professional league, like NFL, NBA, WNBA. It's like very small percentage that make it through, and it's not always according to skill either. A lot of it's luck or who you know. So you could be a phenomenal actor and just never get that opportunity, unfortunately. So, I'm never one to discourage people's creative dreams, but I understand where your dad was coming from on that. It's just really hard to break through, and you just got to know that going into it, Okay, so were you just into music, or did you do other extracurriculars throughout school? Because I know you were traveling too, so you probably didn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I did lacrosse at one point. Okay. I was really into, like, in school, the subjects I was really into were foreign languages. Okay. Youth group.
Nice. What language did you take in
So I started French in 8th grade. Okay. I took it for 4 years. Okay. And then my junior year is when I started overlapping. I started taking German my junior year. And then senior year I took German 2, and I wasn't taking French any longer. Okay. And I also wasn't in the music program senior year, so I was like ramping up for university. Yeah.
Did you take a language in university?
I took a semester or 2 of Russian. Did not go well. Okay. I had done a partial immersion, like 3-week program for Russian in high school. Okay. It just was not working out with my schedule in college. Gotcha. It was that maybe would go back and change that, but then when I studied abroad in Spain, that's when I got the language credit knocked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then since then, I've been studying some Italian on Duolingo. I started that back in 2019, and it just like came to me so quickly because of it shares some root words with
French.
Spanish, but also with French.
Yeah.
So having those kind of like not the immediately fresh on my mind, it, I really enjoy Italian. And then after visiting the Netherlands and realizing that Dutch is, it sounds a lot like English and German. And I thought it had some French kind of pulled over.
Okay.
Not really at all. So I started learning some Dutch on Duolingo, and I've really been enjoying that too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Man, you're just gonna be a multilingualist here.
Well, I've always had trouble with code switching, so I'm trying to keep 5 languages fresh.
Yeah.
Even though they're not all Germanic or not all Romantic.
Yeah.
That way, I'm still exposing myself like at the same time. So there was something I had read about or had seen about someone who's really good at memorizing things, and they said that like you kind of have to keep learning the languages so that you don't just like lose one.
Yeah, you gotta stay current. Interesting.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the true integration of language is going to be living abroad.
Yeah,
it's the
being
full
in the
immersion.
Country. Yeah. Do you feel like you are? Because at least my understanding from science and my background in science, your brain development really kind of stops around 30. But like, do you feel like you're creating new neural pathways through learning this language? Do you feel like any difference?
Yeah,
in
I could see that. I mean, I was always interested in what it would be like if I like opened up the Brain Age game and just started going at it again or whatever. But whenever I have friends who are having kids or whatever, I'm always joking like, what language are you gonna teach them at like 2? Because like. Start them early, and like if you're learning that language with them, then at least like you'll be learning for like that whole amount of time. And like learning languages before the age of 12 is just like huge. And I wish I had more exposure in that way.
It's prime time.
I cannot roll my R's, and so many languages require you to roll the R's, like in Spanish and Russian. Just to start, so that's like I recognize that there's some physiological necessity for starting early for sure.
Probably a little bit more plasticity in learning how to move your tongue when you're younger, for sure.
Not ever having to roll my R's for the first 12 years of life. Or like even more than that.
And then you try as an adult, you're just like, wait, what?
I don't know how to whistle. I don't know how to roll my R's. Like, I can snap.
Hey, that's not everybody can do that either.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Or whistle. So.
So
tell me more about your experience with psychedelics.
Tell me more about the illicit substances.
Right.
Great.
Make sure we get that.
My parents are going to be so proud. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Which one are you talking about?
What psychedelics have you done?
Shrooms and LSD.
Okay.
So psilocybin and LSD.
Okay.
And I guess you would put DMT under the psychedelic category, but it's the one I've done the least.
Okay.
I also know people would put MDMA and its sister MDA under the category of like stimulants. But for me, especially MDA, which is oftentimes derived from sassafras, so sometimes it's called sass. It's my favorite. It's pretty rare to find, and to me, it's not as it's a little bit more relaxed than MDMA. And pure MDMA can be very sedative.
Okay.
And euphoric. But and some of them you can sleep on, but oftentimes not really. Like that's why it's often described as a stimulant, and also cut with things like speed or coke or whatever, or other
B12.
meth, like other stuff. So MDA for me has always been like, yes, euphoric, but also like a little bit trippier, and just honestly, I feel like the the great experiences I've had with it have just made me like have helped me feel more like myself. Like a performance enhancing drug for just being me. Like
for being.
it's just like that social engaging, the things are connecting. Like there's one time I had an experience where there had been a couple of different things leading up to it, but I had this experience where I felt like I could have learned a whole language that night, or I could have written a whole book.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting. Like, it's interesting to be like, well, could I have really? Or like,
if you tried, what would have happened?
Or is that what that substance is supposed to make you feel like? Like, just in general.
To give you the feeling, but not actually give you the ability.
So I don't know if I would put those under psychedelics or not for that reason. It's like a interesting.
That's a helpful classification, though.
Yeah. Like, definitely adjacent, for sure. And these days, I don't really partake very much in any of it, just because right now I've been, like, really eager to create those good feelings on my own and like
your own natural body chemistry.
And like the world around me.
Experientially. Very cool.
Not just for myself too.
Okay. What was your experience with LSD? It's
always like a prolonged experience, so it's hard to say because there are so many different like weaves in and out. I feel like LSD really pulls off the filters that our brain has made for ourselves over the millennia. Like, just really seeing things as it is.
Millennia. So you're talking like Akashic Records, like.
I think human evolution of how we interpret the reality we exist within.
Yeah.
I think psychedelics really help to remove the dimensionality of perspective.
Okay. Illusion of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like recognizing the role that time has to play in it. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Now, the only one that I've actually tried as well is psilocybin. I'm wondering what your experience is with that, and I'll talk about mine after.
Yeah, psilocybin, I always felt like, depending on dose, was either like very intense. I mean, the first time I had it, I definitely cried for beauty. Like, I saw so much beauty around me. I really felt like I was communing and experiencing God, like, as it were the spirit, just like between all things. So that I've always felt like shrooms to be pretty intense. I've always had, the whole stomach acid situation. And so that's always been the hump to get over or whatever, and like slight paranoia. And so even like recently I've tried some microdoses, and I'm happy to have like a break from it in order to like come back when what I say, like, my side of the street is more clean, so that I can have just a euphoric experience. I've also like combined like MDMA with shrooms before.
Interesting. What was that like?
It's been good. More recently I've either done like a microdose of shrooms or like maybe half a dose and then like the full dose of MDMA, or like a microdose of MDMA with a full dose of shrooms. Like, pretty good. I think they help to balance each other out a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that stomach thing with the shrooms. I was watching somebody be interviewed about it, and they're just saying that's because it's like an organic chemical or whatever. Obviously your stomach's going to process it and things like that. But I don't necessarily get nauseous, but I've heard people do get that.
Yeah, definitely.
And
an experience that I've had,
Yeah,
I think it all depends on how you go into it, too. It's like how you... I think that's part of the extra context that psychedelics are asking for is like, what can you do in your life to prepare you for this moment? And it's like, I don't know that I've quite done all the preparing I need to.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I also feel you on like using it sparingly, because I feel like anything you do all the time becomes less special, right? Or if you do it a lot, like to excess. So, and I feel like especially psychedelics are ones that are helping us cross that barrier of like being in a living body, like we are spirits in a like physical body. I feel like it helps us cross that barrier of like getting outside of our body and potentially being in those higher levels of consciousness that are supposedly like existing outside of the body, right? Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
7 layers and it goes deep, deep down in, and then it also has maybe like 1 or 2 layers outside.
Right.
And I feel like those layers outside are what we're trying to get to more often than not with psychedelics, and I think depending on the dose, depending on like your mentality going
Yeah.
in, like you said, where you are physically, like what you've eaten, all those types of things, how much water you drink, does have an effect on it. But if you can optimize your environment before taking the psychedelic, I feel like it's usually a good experience.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. For me, one of the recent times I enjoyed LSD, it was like a very low dose, like a quarter tab of acid with like 30 milligrams of CBG, which is a different cannabinoid than CBD. It's the mother of all cannabinoids, is CBG, where throughout the process of like THC being formed, it will formerly be CBG, and same with CBN and same with CBD and stuff like that. So I was enjoying both of these at Music at the Intersection, and I was like, I really had to concentrate on kind of the lower energies because I was like getting out of touch with them because I was so like in that
in the
outer space of it. And like the best way to describe it at the time for me was like, it wasn't a bad feeling because it was almost so numb. It was almost like I couldn't feel my body, like that my soul and the air didn't have any barrier between them. It was a little wild. I really had to focus on like walking straight because if I stopped thinking about walking, I would have like lost touch with it. Like it's just you know, set and setting sometimes too. It's like I didn't bring with me a chair or something. I didn't. If I had had my hammock that day, it would have been perfect. Like just didn't, you know, didn't know that there would be a perfect spot for the hammock, which there was. So I brought it the next day or whatever. But it was just slightly unnerving feeling to feel like just a little bit out of control in that way, and at the same time trying to listen
almost
to
formless.
the lesson of it as well to be okay with the challenge.
What was to be learned in that experience? For sure, in that experience. Very cool.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of different factors.
I seek experiences like that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I maybe wasn't quite ready or lined up.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like you were like seeking it at the moment. It just happened, and you were like, I'm not in the same consciousness I was a few minutes ago.
I'd much rather like sink into the couch or the hammock or something instead of like trying to walk around all over the place. Or whatever.
Trying to walk around.
This is like a time and a place.
That state is not the time or the place.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to get into a little bit more like what Stephen Colbert might call woo-woo. Have you ever had a paranormal experience or like seen a ghost or anything like that?
Yeah, it's hard to say that it was a paranormal experience, but I feel like I definitely have experienced, like, been in the vicinity with a ghost.
Okay.
I used to listen to a lot of paranormal podcasts, like, not that I don't still, but, like, I really love Bizarre States and Astonishing Legends.
Okay.
And I've been a big believer for a really long time.
Yeah.
You know, I believed practically in, like, God and, like, the faith without feeling or experiencing anything. And then eventually I tapped into my own spirituality. So, of course, the whole time I absolutely did believe in, like, angels or higher being or, like, that there's unexplained, like, yes. Yeah. But it wasn't until, like, early September of last year that I actually, like, experienced what I would say, like, a ghost situation. Gratefully, it was a very, like, neutral experience. It wasn't, like, good or bad. Like, it wasn't additive or subtractive. Like, it wasn't violent or anything or malicious or anything like that.
Entity or whatever.
Or the experience itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was at a yoga studio that was, like, definitely in an older building.
Okay.
Definitely. So off of
This
Grand.
is in St. Louis? Okay.
Yeah, off of Grand. And Soul Azar was teaching.
Shout out to Soul.
Yeah, was teaching comedic yoga, and if you ever meet Soul, if you ever have like a solid conversation with Soul, you're gonna know immediately that he's like tapped in.
Yeah.
To the other side. Like,
super tapped in.
Yeah, definitely in connection, communication with spirits beyond like our world, like whether like innately or consciously or just like in a ongoing sort of way.
Yeah.
And so he was teaching in the class. His friend Colin was filming here and there. So he'd get up every once in a while and take a picture or catch a little video or whatever. Okay. And then sit down and continue class with us. And so in this rectangle room, Soul's at the front, and then Colin's right there, and I'm here in this like back corner, and my friend Rose had also come to class. Okay. And there's a door on the side of the room that I'm on, and a doorway, and then a doorway also behind the wall behind where I'm at. So I'm, if we're on a matrix, I'm in the bottom left quadrant, and then there's like doors on those, the left side and the back side. Okay. And I'm just trying to paint a little picture. Yeah. I feel something walk from the doorway on the left to the doorway behind, like through all of us, basically. Just kind of walk through the space. Yeah. And I opened my eyes, and Colin was not standing up. I thought maybe the owner of the space or the owner of the studio had come up and walked through, but none of that made any sense. And like a week later, like it was very distinctly feeling something walk through. It's like thinking back, it's like, did I hear that? Did I see that? I felt it. Yeah. Like so it's that other sense, and sixth sense. Yeah, exactly. And I asked Soul like a couple weeks later, about a week later, maybe 2 weeks. I asked Soul, I was like, so pretty sure that was a ghost. Did you experience that? And he was like, yeah, I experienced that. Like, definitely shared experience of this situation. And I had since then... A little bit more confirmation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. After that, I talked to the owner of the space, and she was like, oh, yeah, there's definitely a ghost. Okay. Like, definitely maybe complete confirmation. Yeah. So... A couple of days later, I was watching a movie at home by myself, and a spoon that my grandpa had gotten from Korea when he was serving in the war abroad. At least I'm pretty sure this, like, it's very ornate. So I just had it on my mantle, just like cool thing from Papa sort of thing.
Don't really use it much.
Yeah, wasn't really using it for anything at all. Yeah. It's like this bronze thing. It doesn't work with all the other, like, just plain old silverware or whatever, and seemed significant. There was only the one spoon or whatever. Yeah. And so I had it on my mantle, and my mantle, admittedly, like, I can science this one away. Okay. I can science this one away, especially because I was by myself in my apartment. Okay. My apartment's right around the corner from the St. Alexius Hospital, where the, like... Oh, yeah, where the... where the exorcism in St. Louis is, like, known. Yeah.
The patient that was in the exorcism was treated there. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Or not in the movie, but the movie is based on.
Yeah, on real-life events.
Life events, yeah.
So...
It's actually a young man, not a young woman, but...
So this spoon, like, I had a movie on, I could say the volume was up louder than it had ever been or whatever, that the mantle, vibrated the spoon off. Okay. And then just me being me, I put it right back in the exact same spot, and it happens again. Oh. And then, like, since then, I put it in a space where it's, like, has some more support. It's not just going to, like, straight up fall off if that's what's happening. And then I smudged my apartment, like, really, really hardcore, because I was just like, all right, bye. Like, sounds good. Like, and then the next week, my cat Spooks ended up in my life, and so grateful to have, like, a nice, energetic Roomba for around the apartment to kind of make everything feel more at home.
Yeah, so, or at least alert you to spirits that are there,
Yeah, just not so by myself anymore. Yeah. It seemed that he knew that my cat Dust, who passed in October of 22, he could feel her. It really seemed like he could, like, feel her, like,
Her
when he...
presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. I don't really notice him, like, acting like that anymore, but he, like, he was, like, paying attention around the area that, like, her ashes are at and stuff, so... That's pretty much the extent of my paranormal experiences.
Yeah, that's enough. That's probably more than most, I think.
And it was recent.
Yeah.
It's like, it's, you know, if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh man, I wish.
Yeah,
Like,
now you got a couple stories.
Yeah,
Wow.
it all happened like quickly together too. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you feel like that coincided with any like different changes in your life? Just thinking about the times that it was going on.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it like that way at the time, I guess, but
yeah, you never are.
Definitely in a state of flux and definitely wasn't so grounded. It was just kind of a indication. And I was on my way to getting more grounded, but it was like in this period before actually feeling like more secure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's just making me come up with some theories about maybe you're visited when you're more chaotic because like that's when you're most open. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of see it. More open, but I also see it as more vulnerable.
Yeah, more vulnerable.
Yeah. And sure. So grateful to have spooks for that reason. Yeah,
that's super dope.
Because he's definitely like he's not super territorial, but there's a sort of protective sort of vibe about him. But he's not like vicious or angsty or anything like that, really. But he is very attached to me. Yeah. And we're in this together sort of thing. Yeah.
You're my human. Right on. Okay, next question. What do you do to push yourself outside of your comfort zone? Or do you
ask questions?
Ask questions? Okay.
Yeah, I think I ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
I think that like can help provide more understanding with any moment. I guess maybe that's not necessarily how I get into the uncomfortable situations, but that's how I end up navigating them.
Okay.
How to get outside of the comfort zone. I think questioning overall, and like I think for me it's volunteering for things I wouldn't normally gravitate towards. Whenever I think getting outside the comfort zone often happens in a great way when we say like, well, what needs to be done? It's like, what opportunities are out there?
And we don't always have the answer or the resources, and we got to go out and find it or talk to somebody or learn something or, interesting.
I think experiencing art can also, like, whether it's visual art or audio or any sort of piece of art can definitely bring us closer to just a pathway towards a more unique and varied life.
Finding new ways. Okay, so I'm going to ask one of our, I guess, standard questions. How do you get to a place where you can live a full spectrum life? Do you feel like you're living a full spectrum life? I should maybe ask first and then say, how does one get there? How did you do it?
Yeah, I'd say based on conversations I've had, I feel like I do live a full spectrum life. I know that, deconstructionist-wise, we'll never truly know what's another experience, as we only know our own experience. But I do feel very grateful to have a broad spectrum of experiences. I think asking questions has helped me through that, but I think the thing that really has connected me to that experience instead of just intellectualizing it is the practice of yoga. I think just like cannabis, it helps us enter a state of play that helps us connect mind, body, and spirit. And I think that's, if someone's trying to live a full spectrum life, that's a great entry point into determining one's path towards further connectedness, further
self-actualization.
Yeah, that like I wouldn't want to presume that I know the way, but I think to find the way, one of the tools would be yoga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, just the connection of breath to movement. I think I didn't know how to work out or breathe even for real before I started doing yoga. A lot of people don't. Yeah, I did not know how to work out. I did lacrosse in high school, but it's not like I actually was good
Mm-hmm.
at sports
Yeah.
or moving my body.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until yoga that gave me body awareness, gave me balance, gave me breath, like, and life lessons within
Yeah.
the actual yoga practice of like, oh, this is uncomfortable, but it's for growth.
Yeah. I always think about yoga as teaching you to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And that's a huge life lesson, because life is going to throw things at you that will make you uncomfortable. But if you learn how to be still, breathe, a lot of it passes with no problem.
Right.
It's when you clench on and you're like, no, this can't happen. A lot of secondary issues come from that, I feel like. So, yeah, I feel like yoga.
I could always do more yoga. Like, I'm at a point in life where, like, I do feel a need to get it done every day, and I'm at a point where I haven't gotten it done every day. It's like, I see where I want to be. I see where I need to put myself in a better position to be there. I just haven't. We're on our way. It's like this transformation process. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So what did I miss? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't? I know that's a weird question, but
no, yeah, I'm.
You're like, oh, I should have talked about this thing, you know.
No, I'm feeling good.
If not, we can get into, well, how do people interact with you or find the things that you're working on?
I've got a little mini residency at the Royale, a couple Mondays coming up, where I'll just be casually spinning vinyl, but to be in touch with everything, you know, I'd love for you to follow at High Context Podcast, of course. But also at Ace the Girl from Space is my longest running handle. That's pretty much what I am on pretty much all the platforms. But I've also been doing some more work on my social media presence as at I am Atomic Ace. And and then we're also under Sound Activism on Instagram as well.
That's right.
Yeah, and Sonic Space STL if you want to keep up with all the music stuff.
There we go. Definitely follow that. And if you are on Spotify, look for Ace, the Girl from Space playlist.
Yes, you can just search with spaces, Ace, the Girl from Space, and my little personality, my little icon will
You will
pop
thank
up.
yourself.
Yeah, there are some cool playlists on there. I've been excited about this one that I started recently. I don't know why it's taken me years to come up with this, but St. Louis Newness 2024 is the playlist that I'd love for you to follow.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah. It's got a bunch of greats, like The Professor on there.
Oh, look at that.
It's a great playlist. It's already, I think we've got a handful of followers on it already.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet, I'll follow it.
And it's got a great picture of the arch that I took in 2021.
Nice. That's always nice, a personal picture versus, like, internet pictures, you know?
I love it so much. It's funny. I don't like that Spotify has so much AI to it.
Yeah.
But I've been using Spotify since 2011. Like, it's been interesting to see the iterations and user interface, and I have so many feelings and thoughts about it.
Yeah, we won't get into that.
Yeah.
No, but maybe in the future we'll have a Spotify
get
conversation.
me and Colin from the Supercar together, and we'll for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I got some thoughts too.
Yeah. So we'll be back with more episodes of High Context with some of our friends on the show as well. Yeah. And, you know, these 2 episodes have been really cool because we've gotten to create a image of who we are for ourselves, for our listeners. But it'll be Darian and I tag teaming this experience with our guests. And so usually be 2 or 3 of us at a time. And we're also going to be on location with Scene St. Louis to get people seen.
Look out for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Oh, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed
Thank you for interviewing
hearing all of it. Yeah, like I said, stay tuned for more episodes. We're going to have some guests coming up. And until the next time.
All power to all the people.